Guys, in this video, I'll be building this e-commerce product page using Tailwind CSS in React Vite App. I'll be building each and every component here from scratch, and we are also going to make this page responsive on all screen sizes. So if I try to inspect this page and have a look at different screen sizes, we can see that this page is fully responsive on all screen sizes. So guys, if we look at the overall layout of this page has this top section, which is having these breadcrumbs, and this section is taking the entire space until the end of the screen. And then there is a section here which is images, which is basically taking 50% of the screen. And the third section we have here is the description, which starts here, and it's also taking 50% of the screen. So if we look at this layout, it seems like this is going to be flex at the top, and then this part is going to be divided into grid of 2 columns. And if we scroll down a little bit, we can see that this section, which is images, are aligned vertically, but the last 2 images are again divided into a grid of 2 columns. And within this grid, everything is arranged in a flex layout in a single column. So there's a header, and there is a review section, then there is color, size, and so that's the layout basically we need to try and build in Tailwind CSS using grid and flex. So guys, if you are interested in this project, stay tuned till the end of the video and subscribe to the channel. Now let's go to Visual Studio Code and start coding. So guys, I have a new React Vite app open here in VS Code, and it's running on my local host here. I have already set up a Tailwind CSS in this app. If you want to know how to set up a Tailwind CSS in React Vite app, I'll be leaving a link to another video in the description. So I have this Hello World app running here, and I also have the sample application that we have seen. So we are going to try and replicate this layout into our new React Vite app. So as to start building this app, I'm just going to remove this class name here, and we are also going to remove Hello World from the app. And this is going to be the main container div, and the first section that we are going to have in this app is the breadcrumbs that we have seen on the top. So inside this div tag, we are going to place our breadcrumbs that we have seen in the sample project. So that's the first section that we are going to have here, and we will try to make it look exactly similar to this project. So let's go to the project, and here I'm just going to give it a padding of 4 to the overall container. So we are going to have some spacing from the left and the top, and we are going to adjust this padding later as we build the entire layout. So on this breadcrumb section, I'm just going to put a class name, and I'm just going to make text as small, and we are going to give this text a color of gray 900 to make it look little grayish in color. So that's the breadcrumb section, which is basically the first section we have seen here. And in the next section, we are going to build a grid layout. Basically, in that grid layout, 50% is going to be these images, and another 50% we are going to leave it for the description and other information that we see here. So let's go there and let's add another div tag. So I'm just going to name it as main section, and this is going to be another div tag, which is going to be main section. And inside this main section, we are going to have 2 sections. One is images. Let's create a div tag for images here. And the another section that we are going to have is product info, which is going to show here on the right side. So for the product info, we are also going to create a div tag. So we got a main div tag, which is the main section. And inside this main section, we got 2 div tags, one for the images and one for the product info. And here on the main section, I'm just going to make it as a grid layout. And we are going to say this grid is going to have 2 columns, and this is also going to have a padding of 4, and let's give it a gap of 2, and we can come back and adjust these later. So for the first section that we see here, that is images, I have already saved all the images in my assets folder here in my app. So we can see here there are 3 images saved here, 1, 2, and 3, and they are all in the assets folder. So let's close this and let's go back to our app.jsx. So I'm just going to import all the 3 images here at the top. So here at the top, I'm just going to import my main image, second image, and third image from my assets folder. And we are going to place all these images in our images section. So that's my images section. Here under this div tag, I'm just going to create an image, which is going to have a source, and this is going to be my main image. So that's the main image that is coming from the assets. And same way, I'm just going to create 2 more images here, and I'm just going to change this one to second image, and this is going to be third image. So we got 3 images on one side. because we created the overall container as a grid layout with the 2 columns. So all the elements in the first section are taking 50% of the space here, and they are aligned in the vertical direction. So now what we want here is, we want these two images, the second and the third image, to be aligned here horizontally, and first image is already looking good. So for the second and the third image, I'm just going to wrap it under div tag. So let's wrap the second and the third image in a div tag and apply a class name on this div tag, and we are going to make it flex. So they are going to be arranged horizontally one after another. And here on the main div tag, which is the wrapper for all these images, we are going to apply a class name, and we are going to say this is also going to be flex, but this is going to be flex column. So everything is going to be arranged in a column. But now we have a problem here that these two images, the second and the third image, are going beyond our 50% of the screen, and we want them to fit in this 50% space, as we can see here on the original project. So we are going to make some changes here. So overall this div is flex column, but here if we make it flex, this is going to flex towards the right and take the space which is meant for the description section. So instead of making this wrapper div as flex, I'm just going to make it grid, and I'm just going to say this grid is going to have 2 columns, and this is going to make these images fit in the space they have here. And now we want some spacing between all the 3 images. So here on the grid, I'm just going to put a gap of 1. This is going to put a space here, and for these 2 images to have space between each other, we have to go to the main wrapper div, which is flex, and here I'm just going to put a gap of 1. So this section is looking good. It's arranged well. Now all the images, we are going to make this borders rounded. So on all the images, I'm just going to put a class name, and let's make it rounded large. This is going to make the borders rounded on the images. And if we also give it a shadow is going to be large. This is going to look like a card which is popping out from the background. So I'll just copy this class name, and I'm going to apply this class name on both the images here. So all the 3 images have a rounded borders, and they have a shadow which is large. So now this section is looking good. If you want to increase the spacing here a little bit, I can increase the gap to 2 on the main wrapper div. So now our images section is looking good. So now we have to build a second section, which is product info, and it should all be arranged in this 50% of the screen here. And we have already created a div tag as a wrapper for this section. So here inside this div tag, the first thing that we are going to have is the title, which is going to be h1, and we can name it as basic t-shirt. And we are also going to have a p tag, which is going to say the price of this, and let's say the price is $35. So now these sections are coming one after another, so we are going to wrap it under a div tag, and we are going to make it flex so we can arrange them in a single row. So let's make it as a flex, and if we say justify between, so this is going to be arranged in a single row with as much space that is available to have between these 2 tags. So now we want to make them bigger. So on the h1, I'm just going to put a class name, and we can make this text as 3XL, and font is going to be medium, or let's make it bold. And same thing we are going to do on the price. So I'm just going to copy this class name from here and put it on my p tag as well. So that's how the first section is going to look, and it's looking very similar to what we have here. And now the next thing we have to build is this reviews section, which we can see here. So let's actually create different sections here. So that's the header. So I'm just going to call it product header, which is basically the name of the product and the price. And the second section, which is going to be coming under the product info, is after this div tag, and this is going to be reviews. Let's create a div tag for the reviews as well. And after this, we are going to have colors section. Let's create another div tag for this. And then there is going to be size section, and let's create another div tag for the size section. So after the size section, we are going to have a add to cart button. So let's put the button here, and this is going to be the button. Let's keep it empty for now. So these are all the sections we are going to have until here. And in the end, we are going to have a section which is going to be product description. And let's also create another div tag for this. So if I expand this, so under this main wrapper div, we got a header, reviews, color, size, add to cart button, and the product description, which covers this entire section. So now we got the bare bones for this project, and we are going to start by building the reviews section. So here on the reviews section, you can see that we are using some icons here, and also in this project, we are using some icons here in the features section. So before we continue building this reviews section, let's actually install the React icons that I'm going to be using to get these icons. So I'll just open a new tab here and search for React icons. And we can go to this first link, and if we go to the home page here and scroll to the bottom, this is where we can see how to install React icons. So I'm just going to copy this npm install command from React icons and go to my terminal. Let's open a new terminal and install React icons in this project. So now React icons are installed in this project. I'm just going to expand my project here, and let's scroll to the top, and this is where we are going to import all the icons that we are using in this project. So if we look at this sample project, we are using this star icons, and we are using this icon for the shipping and rewards. So I'll just go to React icons, and let's try to put a keyword here, star. So that's the two icons that I'm using. This is a full star icon and a half star icon. So I'll just click on this and import this icon into this project. And let's also import the half star that we see here. Let's copy that and import it into our project. And the third icon that I'll be using is shipping. So let's put a keyword shipping. So we can use this icon for the shipping. Let's copy this and import it here in the project. And the last icon we are using is a $sign, which is basically for the rewards, which is this icon. So let's copy that and import it here. So now we got all the icons in the project. We can close React icons here. And here in the sample project, we can see that this is how our review section look like. So let's go to the project and try to replicate this section. So I'll just go to the project here, and if we scroll down, that's our review section, and that's the div tag which we are going to use for the review section. And here basically I need to display 5 stars, and also I want to display a text which says see all reviews. So I'm just going to create another div tag, and I'll just place my star icon which we imported from React icons. So we can see 1 star icon here. So let's copy this for 4 more times. So we got 4 star icons, and the last icon is going to be the half star, which is this one. So let's place this half star icon here. So now we got 4.5 star rating here. So we want this star icons to be arranged in a horizontal layout. So on this div tag, which is wrapping all the star icons, I'm just going to put a class name here, and this is going to be flex. So this is going to make this section flex in the horizontal direction. And that's the main wrapper for this entire review section. And inside this main wrapper, we got this div tag, which is these stars. And the second element that we are going to place here is going to be just a normal p tag, which is going to say see all reviews. So that's the second part of this review section. But now we want this first part and the second part to be also arranged in a horizontal layout. So here on the main wrapper div, I'm just going to put a class name. This is going to be flex. And if we put items in the center, this is going to align them properly in the center. And we want this section, which is see all reviews, to have some spacing from the left. So here on the p tag, I'm just going to put a class name, and we are going to say this is going to have padding left of 2. Let's make it 4. And we are also going to make this text as a small in size, and we are going to give it a color of gray 900. So that's how this section is going to look like. Now what we also want is we want all these sections that we are going to build here in the description to have some vertical spacing between them. So I'll just go to the main wrapper for the product info, which is this div tag, and I'm just going to put a class name here, and this is going to be flex. Flex direction is going to be column, and let's put a gap of 4. So that's something that is going to give us spacing between all the sections that we are going to create here. So after the review section, we need to create a colors section here. So basically how this color section is going to work is on this div tag, let's put a class name, and let's give it a width of 10, height of 10, and let's give it a background color of yellow 500. So this is just going to create a box, but if we make it rounded full, that's going to create a circle, and that's the layout that we want to display all the colors here. So one way we can do that is let's copy this div tag and let's create few more colors here. So the first one was yellow 500. Let's create red. Let's create pink. Let's create indigo. So we got 4 colors here, and if we want to arrange them in a proper layout, we can wrap all this in a single div tag. And let's wrap all the colors in a single div tag, and let's apply a class name here, and we are going to make it flex in the horizontal direction, and we are also going to give it a gap of 4. So that's the colors section, which is going to look very similar to this one. But now we also need to have a heading here that says color. So let's go back here, and in the colors section, let's wrap this entire section in one more div tag, which is going to end here. And above this colors, we are going to place a p tag, which is going to say color, which is going to be like a heading, and we can give it a class name. This is going to be text, small text, gray 900. And on this div tag, which is wrapping this color and the colors section, we can also put a class name. We can make it a flex column. And if we put a gap of 2, this is going to create a gap between this heading and the colors section. And to highlight this heading a little bit more, we can also give it a font, which is going to be medium. So this is going to be bold, but not fully bold, a medium bold. So guys, our colors section is basically ready, and it's looking very similar to this layout. Now we can see that there is actually much more spacing between the sections here, and here we see less spacing between the sections. So we are going to go to the main div tag, which is wrapping all these sections here, and increase the gap to 6 to add a little bit more spacing here. And now after the colors section, we are going to build a section that is going to represent a size, because size is going to look very similar to the color section. So I'm just going to copy this color section and paste it here in the size section. And we are going to change some details here to make it look like a size section. So let's change the heading to size. And here in the div tag, there is going to be text, which is going to say sizes like extra small. And the second is going to be small. Third one can be medium. And the last size is going to be large. Now we see the sizes here, but in this case, we are not going to be needing a rounded buttons. So I'm just going to remove rounded full from all the class names here. So let's remove rounded full. This was required for the colors, but we don't need it for the sizes. And for the background, probably we can give it a background of gray 500, or maybe we can keep it much more lighter. Let's keep it gray 100, and we can also give it a border gray 500. So that's how our size is going to look like. Now we have added border gray 500, but actually we can't see the border here. So I'm just going to give it a border width of 2. So we can actually see the border around it. We can also make this border a subtle border by making it like 200, which is going to look much more classy. And even though we don't want these buttons to be rounded, but we can give them a little bit of rounded borders by saying rounded small. So this is going to be rounded on the borders. So that's good. It's having a rounded border, but I want these buttons to be like a clickable buttons. So we are actually going to change these div tags to buttons. Let's change this div tag to a button tag. Now this is going to look like a button. And if we do that for all the elements here, so this is going to make all these buttons as clickable buttons. And now because I want this styling to apply in all the buttons, so I'll just copy that and replace all this with the same styling as this one. So let's recreate this button as small, and we can also create a copy of this as medium. And now we got 3 size buttons here, and we can also create, let's create large, let's also create XL. So now this button section is looking good now, and we can further improve this button section by putting a hover property here. So when we are going to hover over this buttons, probably we can change the border color. So let's do that. So here on the first button, I'm just going to put a hover property, and here I'm just going to say this is going to change the border to indigo 500. So if I apply this property, so when we hover over this button, the border is going to change, which is going to be looking much better. So I'll just use this hover property on all my buttons here. Let's copy it to all the buttons. Now we can see all the buttons are having the hover effect. So that's the size section. And in the end, we are going to have this add to cart button. Let's create it as add to cart, and this button is going to have a class name, and the text is going to be large, and let's give it a background color, which is going to be indigo 700. And we can also make text as white, which is going to look better. And this button is also going to have rounded borders, rounded to large. Now this button is looking very small, so if we give it a padding of 4, this is going to make it large. Probably padding 4 is too much, so I'll just reduce it to 2, and now that's a decent size button. Now we can also add a hover property here, so when I hover over this, button should look good. So here I'm just going to add a hover property, and on hover I'm just going to change my background color to indigo 900, which is going to be darker. So if we do that, now we can see there is a hover effect which is looking better. So that's our add to cart button. Now the last section we have to build here is the product description. So here in the description section, which is this div tag, we are going to basically have two things. So let's expand this div tag and put 2 tags here. So basically this is a h2 tag which says description, and then there is a paragraph which is some description of this product. And now we are going to improve the styling of this by using some Tailwind CSS. So here on the main wrapper div, I'm just going to make it flex, and flex direction is going to be column, and we are going to give it a gap of 3. So this is going to create a gap between this description and the paragraph. Now for this description and the paragraph, we are basically going to have a medium sized text on both of them. So let's give them a medium text, and we are also going to make it a little bit gray. So let's give it a color of gray 900. So I can copy that, also put it on the description. And we can also give it a font medium on the description, because this is like a heading, so it should be bolder than the text here. And here on the text, we can see that this is arranged too tightly. So if we just put a property here that is leading relaxed, this is basically going to increase the line spacing in this description and make it look better. So now we have the description section which is ready, and if we go to the sample project, if we scroll down, we can see that there is another section which is this one, and this is going to look very similar to the description. So I'll just copy the description section. Let's go to the project here, and we can create a copy of this, and this time this is going to say fabric care, and this description is going to look a little bit different this time. So I'm just going to remove this paragraph here. This description is going to be unordered list, and inside this list we are going to have different list items where we are going to have fabric care instructions. So let's say this is machine washable. Let's create some more list items here, so we can copy the same thing. Now we want to improve the styling on this list items. So to improve the styling, I'm just going to put a class name here on the unordered list, and we are going to say text is going to be medium, and text is going to be gray 900 again. And if we make this list as disk, this is going to have bullet points here. And if we also make this list as inside, this is going to have proper indentation on this bullet points. And we can also give it a space y as 2 to create more spacing between the list items. So that's how it's going to look like. This is basically ready. Now the next thing we have to build here is the feature section, which we can see here. These are the 2 cards that we want to build, which is going to be using these 2 icons, and it's going to be looking like a card. So after this section, I'm just going to create, let's call it features, and let's create a div tag for the features. And inside this div tag, first thing we are going to do is we have to place our icon here, which we have here, shipping icon. So I'll just copy that, scroll down and paste my shipping icon here. So now we can see a little shipping icon here. And the second thing is going to be just a heading, which is going to be h2. And it's going to say fast delivery. And then there is going to be p tag, which is going to say get your order in 5 days. So that's how our features is going to look like, but we want to make it look like a card. So here on the main div tag, I'm just going to put a class name and give it a background color of gray 200. So now you can see there is a background around it, and we can give it a padding of 4, and we can also make it a flex, and flex direction we can keep it as column, so everything is arranged vertically, and we can justify the content to center, and we can also say items are going to be centered. This is going to bring all the text in the center, and now we can also give it a rounded border, so rounded large. Let's also give it a shadow large, which is going to make it look like a card. And now this icon is looking very small, so we will go to this icon and here we can put a class name. We can say text is going to be large. Let's make it 5XL to make it large. And we can also copy the class name and put a font size here on the H2, which is going to be medium. And same thing we are going to do on the P tags. So I'll just place this class name here as well and change the size to medium. So now it's looking like a card. If we want to have two cards, we can just copy that and change the content. But now we want these two cards to be arranged horizontally. So we are going to wrap this entire feature section, which is two cards, in a div tag. Let's wrap it. And now on the main div tag, if we make it flex, this is going to be arranged horizontally, and we can give it a gap of 2. So now our feature section is looking good. Now we can see that our page is looking very similar to what we have seen in the sample project. But now there are few improvements that we need to do here. For example, this spacing looks very less between the images and the description. So we can go to the main wrapper div, which is wrapping the entire main section, which is this one, and increase the gap to 4 to increase a little more spacing between these two sections to refine this page. So now everything is looking good. Last thing we need to do is to make sure this page is fully responsive on all the screens. So I'm just going to expand this and look at it in the larger screen, and we are going to inspect it. And now if I try to look at it in the mobile screen, we can see that in the mobile screen it's still taking 50%. This is taking 50% because it's a grid of 2 columns. So we are going to fix that on the main section. So let's go to the main section here. So here in the main section we can see that we have grid columns too, but actually we want to have, by default we want to have one column. It's only on the large screen that we are going to split it into 2 columns. So let's make a change here. So if we do that, now this is how it's going to look like on the mobile. And if we expand this page, as soon as the screen is going to reach large size, this is going to split the entire content into grid of 2 columns. And that's how it's going to look like on the larger screens. So guys, this is looking really good, and that's all I wanted to cover in this video. Let me know what do you think about this project in the comments. And if you found a value in this video, leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.